Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Somna Sambo, and I'm glad that I'm being joined by my colleague to talk about football. Well, football fans in Nigeria are yet to come to terms with the disappointment of missing out of the upcoming FIFA World Cup in Qatar. The Super Eagles failed to qualify following a 1-1 draw against Ghana in the second leg of the playoffs. This ensured the Black Stars qualified by virtue of the away goal rule, having held the Eagles to a goalless draw in the first leg. But it is the fallout of the match that has created the immediate controversy. Angry fans had besieged the newly renovated pitch of the MKO Abiola Stadium in Abuja after the final whistle destroyed almost everything in sight, including 2 dugouts. Similar reactions in football have drawn sanctions from football's governing body, FIFA, including fines and stadium bans. With FIFA still studying the reports from the match, Nigeria's football community awaits what might be the nation's heaviest football punishment while dealing with the heartbreak of missing out of the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. Well, I'm glad to be joined by my colleague Ferdinand Duruoha, who is a Arise Sports Correspondent and editor who was on the ground for an assessment of what actually happened. We'll be discussing the politics of sports at this moment. And Ferdinand, the Minister of Sports had actually set up a committee that will go through this. The likes of Michel Obi and some other top ex-players are in that. We've seen the former football players in the country condemning what actually happened that day. But, a lot of Nigerians are not sleeping fine. They are with some sort of fines or sanctions from FIFA. What exactly are we expecting at the moment?
Well, first things first, we must indeed come to terms with what has happened. Talking about that, the country failed to qualify for the World Cup, and then also, one of our biggest football investments, the National Stadium in Abuja, which was newly renovated and refurbished.
Private sector efforts, and not just the government.
You really want to sit back. If you are one of those who did invest in that stadium, sit back, see exactly what the fans have done, and you want to say how big and how disappointing it's going to be. Then also, you also take a look at some of the reasons why we saw that kind of action. Well, for me on that particular day, I think it was quite disappointing because that just showed failure on the part of our security personnel to handle things. Now, I don't think it takes any extra effort to see that something was definitely going to happen after that match. Now, there are different FIFA rules, and for a game of that magnitude, the FIFA rule states that you must have as much as 150 policemen on ground. Now, that on its own, 150 policemen compared to 60,000 capacity, really leaves a whole lot more to be desired. But it was also quite frustrating that most of the security personnel who were on ground, immediately they got wind of the fact that the president was actually going to be at the venue, and the president, most of the security personnel was now devoted to safeguarding the president and then the entourage and then the VIPs.
The emphasis was on them.
The emphasis was on them
and not the fans.
And then not the fans. Now, usually when you begin to see that kind of a situation, towards the end of the pitch, you begin to see some kind of policing. Maybe riot policemen begin to come around, to come and compliment the efforts of the stewards. But we didn't see anything like that. In fact, we did not see any sort of sports policing. Now, what we saw was simple riot, actions from policemen who, you also would not want to blame them. The Stadium of Abuja or the city of Abuja have not seen such an event.
That's what
in the last
I wanted to say.
Years.
Yeah, in the last 10 years, we haven't witnessed such a huge football match. And the emphasis that day was more of like bringing anti-riot squad to make it look like it was a protest that people were coming out for, and not a football match. Does it mean that the Nigerian police have not been able to train themselves in such a way that they will have a special squad that deals with, football games, how to crowd control measures and all of that?
100%, you got it right. And I think it's also a lapse on the CAF and FIFA authorities. Now, we have a Nigerian who is the head, or who was the head of the FIFA security, of the CAF security at the last African Cup of Nations. In fact, for the last 2 African Cup of Nations. And so you really want to ask questions, how come our people were not trained for sports policing? Now, I must also let you know that, one of the things that aggravated the situation was when the security forces tried to react, and guess exactly what they did. Well, the normal thing that they would do at the Unity Square, at the Unity Fountain, or anytime there's protest, well, begin to throw tear gas, and that in its own aggravated the fans. And you could indeed pick the number of policemen who were there. There were not more than 20 policemen, to that number of, of crowd that we saw. That it was indeed disappointing. So I think they failed in terms of policing the fans, rather putting most of the emphasis on the VIPs, who also had their own complaints.
Yeah, now, because most of the VIPs, like the likes of Obi Kubana and so many of them were complaining that they couldn't gain access to the VIP stand because the president was going to be there. So even with their tickets that they spend huge monies to actually buy to protect themselves, it was difficult
to indeed come in.
Yeah, but let's talk about the sanctions. Based on previous developments in the past, Nigeria has previously been sanctioned by FIFA before. What do we expect? What are the fines that may come with it?
We're not trying to preempt, whatever may come out of that particular report from FIFA. But the truth is, let's go back the year 2000. Nigeria, Ghana hosting the African Cup of Nations. The semi-final match, Nigeria and Senegal. Nigeria scored a late-minute goal, and guess what? Fans invaded. Fans stormed onto the pitch, and Nigeria got a soft ban for it. Well, I think it was about $5,000, that was paid. Fast forward 2016, same situation in Kaduna, Nigeria against Egypt. It was supposed to be a capacity of 25,000, but we had more than 40,000, although there wasn't any significant invasion. But then we did see FIFA coming down with some kind of a stadium ban. We didn't really handle matters well. So we are wait and we see. I think it's it's going to be much of a fine, and then perhaps a ban on the stadium until Nigeria is able to prove that they have adequately dealt with issues like security.
Okay, and one important thing to stress here, especially to our viewers, is that Nigeria has not received any ban yet. Because if you go on social media, you see lots of things being circulated. MKO Abiola Stadium has been banned by FIFA and all of that. So no decision yet. How about the CAF official that actually passed on during this game after the entire exercise? What sort of investigation is being done? We've seen NFF consoling with the family and then the country that he actually comes from. What exactly is the latest?
Well, I think this is the point where we definitely have to understand that, aside the fact that this is football, there have to be some other diplomatic issues, because, he's going to be treated as a diplomatic personnel who was also on duty on that particular day. But then I remember seeing the ambulance drive past myself and my camera person when we were doing the interviews. And what actually happened was he was on his way to the Ghanaian camp to get he was one of the doping officials to get the Ghanaian players for testing. And on his way, we heard that he held on to his chest, and then some of the people, they had to run to the clinic, the facility that was quite close, try to get doctors, and they did first aid, and they decided that they had to move him. The unfortunate situation was that it took some time because of the crowd management outside to indeed get the ambulance out there. But be that as it may, there already is some form of investigation going on to know exactly, if the Nigerian situation was complicit, Nigerian officials were complicit in terms of management, and then see exactly what would have gone wrong. But from what we hear already, it's not been treated like
based on the stampede that were ahead, people saying that it's the stampede and lynching, alleged lynching that led to his death. Yeah. So as we try to round off this conversation, the Super Eagles technical crew has been disbanded, Eguavon has resigned, and all of that. Tell us, what are the lessons that we have learned from all of this?
Well, plenty of lessons. Well, first things first, in sports, there are no quick fix. Well, what Nigeria tried to do was try to, make quick fixes. We didn't deal with the issue of Coach Gennaro Rowe. We all complained from the start, for the last 6 years that he's been in charge, that he hasn't played the best of football. But the Nigerian Football Federation did not see any reason to react promptly. Well, it was until Coach Kenneth Rowe had qualified for the African Cup of Nations and was on the verge of qualifying for the World Cup, well, just in December. But that was exactly when, they had to ask him to step aside, and then brought in Coach Austin Eguavoin. Now, taking a look at it, I think if Coach Kenneth Rowe was in charge, well, he has, the previous times that he had qualified us for the World Cup and then for 2 African Cup of Nations, he did that with a game to spare. And then when we came up in playoffs, he had his way of grinding out results. It might not be the best football, he might not play the best style of football, but he had his way of grinding out the best result. And then also we have to look ourselves in our faces and then know that yes, you don't just throw money at problems. You have to go back to the grassroots. You have to develop. All the times that we've seen coaches in Nigeria, coaches win the African Cup of Nations, they had done it with a good crop of home-based footballers, sprinkle them with some foreign-based footballers, and then that's the winning formula for us.
Okay, just before I let you go, how do you foresee a Qatar 2022 without Nigeria representing Africa? I mean, a lot of countries globally were waiting Nigeria's presence there to see how we can add some, foreign entertainment to it. But unfortunately,
for the football family from Nigeria, it's a big disappointment. Lots of funds, were supposed to come in, investments, this is a big loss in terms of financial gains. It's a big loss. However, in terms of football, I don't think we will lose anything. This is not the first time we're missing Nigeria at the World Cup. Senegal is there, Cameroon is there, Tunisia is there, and then some other African countries. And from what we've seen from the other countries that are coming, I think it's going to be a great spectacle, with or without Nigeria. I'm
sure a lot of persons who had been thinking of what sort of jersey we'll be wearing to Qatar would have been missing the sort of jerseys that they thought would have brought to that game.
But we always have a way of making those entrances.
I just feel for most of those fans, because globally they're always looking out for the Super Eagles. We must thank you so much, Ferdinand Duruoha, who is a sports correspondent and editor for Arise News. He was there at the Eagles match with Ghana, and we can only wish Nigeria well, and we hope that next time we'll learn these lessons, and we will keep calling on you to discuss sports politics and the politics of sports.